This is our second session with Brother Smith and Brother Thorp on biblical chronology. Okay, anytime you guys are ready, you can start.
Okay. Here's something that I give. Now this is out of order because I'm going into Moses here, but I find this very, very, very interesting. When I preach someplace, I will give these, and I just go over their head. It's just they can't grasp it here. Well, there's so much information. It's about in the wilderness. Moses and his people. Moses and the people were in the desert, but he was going to do for them. They had to be fed, and feeding 2 to 3 million people requires a lot of food. According to the quartermaster general in the army, this is his wings, it is reported that Moses would have to have had 1,500 ton of food each day. Do you know that to bring that much in each day, 2 freight cars, each at least a mile long, would have to be required? I want to let that sink in. That's manna.
Yeah.
That's manna. Besides, you must remember that they were in the desert so that they would have firewood to use for cooking food, and that would take 4,000 ton of wood and a few more freight car loads, each a mile long, just for one day. And just think, there were 40 years in transit. And oh yes, they would have had to have water, so they all had enough to drink to wash a few dishes. Would take 11 million gallon each day, and a freight train of tank cars, 1,800 miles long, just to bring water. And, you know, we say, well, they had water in the desert and they had food in the desert. But I give this, and people go, huh? You know what I mean when I say, huh? You can't grasp these figures. You know? That interesting to you?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
But then there is another
Well,
problem.
what it does to me, it shows the divine intervention of God. See, to me, this whole teaching puts tremendous emphasis on the fact that God definitely is real. It proves that God exists. It proves there is a God. It proves that God wrote the Old Testament through various writers, and that he was the definite author, because they wrote these dates, times, and periods without even knowing a lot of the other stuff. And yet it shows then how God definitely, it proves the existence of God and the reality of Jesus Christ more than anything else I've ever dealt with.
One of the greatest Bible teachers, well, brother, nobody knows how many times they moved. It's in my notes someplace. Every time they moved, it's in the Bible. Every time Moses recorded it. And I thought, well, bless his heart. That's what he thought. You know, nobody knows. But it's there. Okay, then there's another problem. Each time they camped, at the end of the day, a campground 2/3 the size of the state of Rhode Island was required. A total of 750 square miles long. Think of it, how much space for camping. Do you think Moses figured all of this out before leaving Egypt? Think not. You see, Moses believed in God, and God took care of these things for him. Now, do you think that God has any problem taking care of all of our needs? I find this ultra interesting. This one,
yeah, very interesting.
one little thing.
Well, just give me that one.
Well, call of Abram, and I have 2083, and you have 10 years. They left Haran. The birth of Ishmael at age 86, Genesis 16:16. 14 years to the birth of Isaac, Genesis 21:5. Isaac was weaned at the age of 5. And then we have the death of Sarah. She's the only woman in the Bible ever numbered.
Right.
127. Sarah dies at 127. The marriage of Isaac at age 40. Now, if you notice up here, we have the numbers biblically. To the birth of Jacob and Esau, to the death of Abram at 175, year 2183. To the marriage of Esau at age 40, Genesis 26:34. Esau married at the age of 40. Joseph stood before Pharaoh at age 30. Now we're getting into knowledgeable story time, you know. Joseph. Begins 7 years of plenty at age 30. At the end of 7 years of plenty, he was 37. At the end of 2 years of famine, Jacob went down into Egypt at age 130. Joseph at that time was 39. Jacob's age was 147. Joseph was 56. Add 54 years to the death of Joseph. Joseph died at age 110. Genesis 50:26. The death of Joseph to Moses to the deliverance. You have 2369 at the death of Joseph. You have 80 years of Moses' life. (64) and 80 is 144. So from the death of Joseph to the birth of Moses and his life is 144 years. I don't know if I asked you this question 13 years ago, but here's where I always get the preachers. I said, do you realize that I preached for 30 years, that they were slaves for 430 years? And they'll say, well, how was it? Yeah. I said, no, they weren't. They were not slaves. They were in the bondage of Egypt as a nation.
Right.
But when he left at 75 years old, that's why that other page is so important. He left at 75 and went down into Egypt. 70 people.
Right.
Okay?
Well, they treated him good.
Huh?
They treated him good at first.
Oh, man. He gave them Goshen. Now, through this brother, which we cannot prove, okay, and if you can't prove it, I don't preach it, biblically. But he claims he has so much information on the nation down there that they were giant shipbuilders. And they shipped all over the world. And for, subtract the two, and you'll find out they were slaves 144 years, but the rest of the time, they were not slaves. That's where their 2 to 3 million came into focus, in Goshen. So they had it made. Goshen had it made. And then there arose another Pharaoh that knew not Joseph.
That's when he got in trouble.
The other day, this man shared something with me, and he said, Janus and
Jambres.
These were not pharaohs. They were of another tribe, and they took over Egypt. And they became, and that's why the Bible calls them pharaohs, but they were not pharaohs. These were killed in the flood, remember? After the Jews go out? Well, anyway.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the magicians.
Yeah. It's those descendants that were not fair. Now, this is not Bible. This is history. So I won't say yes and yes. But these two scriptures, or these two incidences, well, like I say, I know who to take out to eat and then talk, but I always take them out to eat, after church. And they know next day is Monday, and so they're traveling, so I'll get missionaries. And I'll say, you realize that I preached for 400 and some years that they were slaves? And they'll say, huh? What? You don't think so? I said, it's not biblical. 144 years because Joseph died, plus you add 80, then you have the deliverance. 144 years. So all this is to tie together. Well, let's go to Genesis 15:13. And he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in the land, and is not theirs, shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Now the 430, of course, takes in the birth of Isaac and Ishmael. That's the 30 years which proves in here. But they will be under Egypt's domain. They were not their own. But they were not slaves for 430 years. All right.
Exodus 12.
And 40. Now this'll shock your brain. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of 430 years, even the self-same day, it came to pass that all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt.
All right, so same date.
430 exactly from here. Exactly. See, I've covered 430 years here. And then the Exodus says the self-same day they came out. Fulfilling the prophecy of Abram. Okay, now go to this little chart. I thought this was interesting because the book of Exodus is only 144 years, and Genesis is almost 3,000. Exodus 12:2 and Numbers 33:2 to tell you the BC, and it was 1 month, 15th day. They arrived at the wilderness the same year, 2nd month, and the 15th day. The giving the manna and the smiting of rock, 25:13 or 15:33, the 2nd month, the 15th day. Arrival at Sinai and giving the 10 Commandments, 1533, the third month. See, you have 1 month and then so much is done in just 1 month. Then Israelites remained at the foot of Sinai for 9.5 months. That's the first day of the first month of the second year. Exodus 40:17. That would be in the year 1532, first month, first day. Events of the 9.5 months, statutes of judgment given, the golden calf, the tables of stone broken and renewed, the tabernacle built. That was in 1532, first month, and so I don't know how many days. The events of Leviticus bring us to the numbering of Israel. Now, the book of Leviticus is in the second month and the first day. So it looks like these books are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Looks like they're periods of time, but short. They were short. This is one short period of time, according to Scripture. Number of finished spies sent forth, 1532. Second month, 20th day. Interval of 38 years, less 1 month, during which the Israelites wandered in the wilderness, no events being dated until the death of Miriam. So you have 38 years, brother, of quiet years. So the first 2 years is all of the information of Exodus and Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. I thought this chart would be a little bit interesting.
You know what I found to be interesting in studying chronology in general, that the first 11 chapters of Genesis covers about 2,000 years.
Yeah,
and the whole rest of the Bible covers 2,000.
Yeah, very, very, very good. Very good.
Blew my mind when I saw that.
Oh yes, very good, very good.
I mean, that's how detailed the last 2,000 years have been
Now
compared
that's yours
to
and that's yours if you
the
wish.
first 2,000 years. 11 chapters for 2,000 years and the whole Bible
Amazing.
for another 2,000.
Amazing.
Do what now?
I thought Leah and Rachel, I thought there was a 7-year gap between them marrying, was it Jacob?
Well, to me, he worked another 7 years, but they were married.
Yeah, they were married during
Oh,
that time.
oh.
That's what I thought, but I want to make sure.
Yeah,
I'm right.
well,
Okay.
In words, he gave him to her to wed,
Oh.
but he had to go ahead and work her payment.
Afterwards, okay, gotcha.
In words, he got her on credit.
they
He
were,
paid for his first, he paid for his
Oh,
first
my
one up
gosh.
front, but he got his next one on credit.
There's probably a sermon in that. The other question I had, which might be answered, I don't know, was
Hi, baby.
why was it important that Sarah was the only woman numbered?
Don't know.
No, but that's true. She was the only woman.
If you, now I want you to go to 1 Kings 6 and 1. Say I have key questions I ask ministers when I take them out to eat, pastors or evangelists, you know. And this is one of the questions I have fun with, and I'm sure I talked to Brother Smith about this, and he'll remember it, I believe, as we go. And this is very, very, very confusing to chronologists, but there is a biblical answer. That's all I'm interested in, is see the biblical answer. You ready on 6:1?
Mhm.
Okay. And it came to pass in the 480th year after the children of Israel come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziph, which was the 2nd month, he began to build the house of the Lord. I said, do you realize, and two pastors, and I wouldn't do this to a member of a church, this is right and this is wrong? And they said, well, Brother Tharp, that's the Word of God. I said, that's right. You're right. It's the Word of God. but you have to differentiate where we're missing some years. Now, what this is, it'll give you the wilderness period, which as we know is 40 years. Then you have the 7 years war. Then you have the Joshua Judges connection, which is 13 years. Then you go into Judges, okay? Now, I don't know if it's on yours or not. I write so many figures down. When you go through the Judges, and you'll notice a third servitude, you see that? I've got it underlined, I believe.
Yeah, servitude or underlined.
Okay. And then the fourth servitude, fifth servitude, and sixth servitude. When you add these up, when you subtract those, you come up to 480. But if you add them to the period of time, and what happens is that Judges is like this. And this is a servitude, where God is not the theocracy. These are when the judges have a theocracy. God uses, but he doesn't give us, you have to get this through the New Testament, this period of time. So now we're missing, I think, 114 years, but then the grand total is 594 years instead of 480. This is where many chronologists missed it. They couldn't see that. Anstey brought this in, another brought it in.
Now, you said how many years off is this, 82?
No, 114, I believe, isn't it?
114 years off.
114, I believe.
Okay.
Oh, 111 years of 6 servitudes. Add 3 years to the usurpation, but 114 years. You following this,
Yeah.
Brother Paul?
So the servitude is when they were in obedience to God, the other time is when they weren't under the judges, and the other time when they're not having the judges?
That's correct. God was not their theocracy, and so he didn't number that as the 480 years.
Okay, so he just numbered the time when God was the theocracy.
Correct. When God,
But the rest of it, you add that on to get...
you have to.
Okay.
They're
How did you find that out?
Oh, study, I guess, I don't know. I just dug and dug and dug for the last 44 years. Hey, my point again, remember that little chart, the 16 squares.
Yeah.
You go out, but when you go out, you better be Bible.
See, every year has to, what he's saying, you have to account for the 114 years, or else chronology
Yeah.
becomes an error.
Right.
You know, God, because we're trying to get the true number of years here, not just, and God only counts the years in lineage, as when he was talking about something, he only counted the years he was in control.
That's it.
And so, but you still got to account for those other years.
Whoa, scare me, sweetheart. Oh, you be careful.
I will.
Okay, love you, doll.
Nice talking to your wife.
We
she
appreciate
said.
Hey, by the way, he's sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Well, he's
appreciate you
sharp
got this
too.
made your home.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I'm okay.
Got any reports on him?
I haven't heard anything else, so
Okay.
I'll see
Well,
you.
you be careful, sweetie.
All right, okay.
They liked your ham.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that was good, thank you.
Good.
I may oink here in a little bit. So we gotta account for the whole thing. You see, that's where errors come in. It's when you read a statement and you don't realize there were years here were unaccounted for. That leaves you another, on top of the 82, that guy had in here, you could have another 114 right here
Yeah.
if you don't realize what's going on here. So this is critical. when
Yes,
you're
it
putting
is.
these dates
It is
together,
critical,
that You've
and-
got to know this. Okay, Brother Thorpe, I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead.
no, that's fine. I enjoy it. I'm talking too much. Turn the page here if you will. I think I have another page for a couple of pages here.
Right.
I glance at the table of 480 years of First Kings. Once disclosed the fact that the number 480 is arrived by omitting from 400 for the entire 111, or it goes up to 3 more of these serptions. See it there? Writer is not computing chronology of the world, he is computing the chronology of Israel. In other words, the chosen people as governed by God. In other words, he is computing the years of theocracy that lie between the two critical epochs. Exodus, at which it began in commencement of the building of the temple, the dedication of which just 10 years later, the full cycle of 77, and these theocracy years are complete. That's going down. Why then are the 114 years of servitude and usurpation omitted? Because the author is computing the years of the theocracy. See, you got it, Bro Paul?
Yeah.
Got it? I know you got it. Yeah. Now, if you'll turn the page, we'll go to the period of Exodus to the 4th year of Solomon, according to St. Paul. Okay. See, the New Testament bears this out. And we go to Acts 13. Starting with verse 17. The God of the people of Israel chose our fathers and are exalted the people when they dwelt as strangers in the land of Egypt, and with a high arm brought them out and set of it. And about the time of 40 years suffered he their manners in the wilderness. And when he had destroyed 7 nations, see, all this will cover what I have on the front. Okay? It will cover that. It'll tell you the names and the servitudes and everything. Okay? Where am I?
Verse 19 for Acts, for you was reading along in there, right, 18, 19.
Oh yeah, and when he had destroyed 7 nations in the land of Canaan, he divided the land to them by lot. And after that he gave them judges for about the space of 450 years until Samuel the prophet. Now I want you to put Samuel in your brain, because I'm not going to get to this today. I'm going to give you too much, and I don't want to give you too much. But Samuel is very, very, very important in one of my next 2 lessons on this. And afterward they desired a king. God gave unto them the son of Kish, the man of the tribe of Benjamin, space of 40 years. And when he had removed him, he raised up unto him David to be the king, to whom he also gave his testimony. I have found David, the son of Jesse, a man after my own heart, which shall do my will. I believe we have him on this page, don't we?
Yep, it's number 6.
Okay. Down at the bottom, reign of Saul, David, and Solomon. After the judges, although they were interjected at the time of the judges, there's a period of time. There's a period of time when your judges ended. In fact, Samson was the latest. And then judgments of Eli was in there, 40 years. Saul connection, the judgments of 20 years. The reign of Saul, 40, 40, and 40. And then the reign of Solomon to the 4th year. That's why you only have 4. So when you add all of these up, you get 594 instead of 480. The book of Acts proves it, I see. Coming together? Okay. Take this with you, excuse me.
So Saul, oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. What do you have?
No, I'll just, I'm at the book of Acts there, so if you don't, I see it, go ahead, never mind. I got the answer, just I was about to ask it, okay, I see it, go ahead.
What do you have here, brother? Share it with me.
Well, I was just trying to figure out how the 450, the 20 years there, I see where it is, the servitude, but these others were after the 450 years. That 44 were after the other. So I needed to see that it was after the 450, not before, so I see.
But the main scripture is Acts 13, 17 to 22, which proves that Old Testament. See?
Right.
Now, if you'll turn the page, I try to prove it here again. Years of stated by St. Paul and omitted by St. Paul. Wilderness, 7-year war, division of the land, Saul, David, and Solomon. Period covered by St. Paul's statements, period omitted by St. Paul. He comes up to 530, and then you add the 64, you get to 594. Okay, what we're trying to prove here is that there are 594 years. And how you get them, they go to 530, then you add their 64, and you get to 594. The difference between Paul's statement and period and St. Paul's statement.
Where did Paul say that at?
Acts 13.
10,
Oh, right, okay,
13,
yeah.
yeah, we just read it.
Right.
He's got it up at the top, Acts 13, 17 through 20.
Oh, okay, okay.
Things like this, if you allow me to say it, I have to go out of the box. Paradigm. 4-minute mile. Can't be done. Never been done ever in the history of racing, of the Olympics. And an Englishman did it, and I can see him, because I've seen it on TV, I saw him do it. And when he broke that, it was 4:01, I think it was. He broke in other words, he broke the 4-minute mile.
1/10 of a second.
And they went wild. It can't be, in other words, no one has ever done it. Let's see. in the 50s, a church member, he just died in Akron, just died at 97 years old. He and his wife invited my wife and I to their home, and we said, this is the way I want to build the church. Now you understand I started with children. I've got a record of everyone since 1954 up until 50 years ago, 60 years ago I baptized. The last one is my grandson. Well, anyway, we sat down at the table, and I said, we don't have any money. You don't have any money. You don't have any. Maybe, $150, $200 to pay your rent and bills and things like that. But I said, I've got an idea. And I drew out a church, but I drew it only in blocks, concrete blocks. And I put a thing up on the board that if you want to buy a block, I think it was 17 cents or 21 cents, fill it in. And I showed him the little plan of the church, and the man said, it won't work, you can't do that. Sweet man. Sweet man. I mean, and he stayed sweet till he died at 90-some. But he said, that won't work. It worked. It worked. We put money and money and money, this, so, that, and we didn't buy the block. We did it at one time. They were so cheap, Then I got a builder to build it, and he built it for $28,500, and if you see today, it's worth $1 million.
Wow.
$1 million. Because we got a loan about 15 years ago to build on, and when my wife and I went to the bank, the banker said, well, Pastor, how much you want, 300,000? I said, no. He said, 200,000? I said, no. He said, what do you need? I said, 100,000. Is that all you need? We had 58 in our building fund, so we had our 58 to start with. I said, you got my attention. I don't understand something. how could we get a loan of $300,000? And of course, this answer is simple, but it was past me. I wasn't in the, outside the box yet. He said, we went out and we evaluated your building as you now stand and your land. And it's worth $1 million. So if we can't make a $300 payment, they're $700,000 ahead. But they know what they're talking about because that's their life. And I told the church this, and it didn't excite the church, they're just a good church. So here we are, going into the New Testament. Now the last page I have, we're proving the 114 years. The Joshua Judge connection, and it gives you too much or the years and so forth. And it comes to 156 years, you're minus 42, you're at 114, not abridged in chronology. See, there's where I got the 114 years.
Now, we'd have to study this and break it down.
Oh, yeah, that's why I gave you this copy.
This is, cause just looking at it, I wouldn't know what all this refers to. You know.
I'm sorry, I went too fast.
You'd have to go in there and, I mean, you got here 31 instead of 13 equals 18 too much, you know, I'm not sure where all that's coming from.
Well, the total number is the answer.
But I'm just saying that, just
where did it
reading
come
the
from?
chronology of the period from Exodus to the 4th year of Solomon, and this is a table of his mistakes. Okay, that's what you're dealing with.
Right.
Okay, it makes sense. I didn't know what you're even dealing with here.
So this is the time when they weren't under the authority of God, basically, is that right? Outside of that 480 years that Solomon talked about? That's what this is breaking down as?
The 114 years are the servitude years that was not counted in the theocracy of God.
Yeah, right, that's what it
Okay.
is, right.
Okay? You said
And you're
something.
showing what these servitude
That's
years
exactly
are. That's
are.
what this,
That's
okay,
what
I
it
didn't
is.
understand what your table was. That's what
I'm
was confusing me.
sorry.
I didn't understand what
I
table you
went
were
too
showing.
fast there.
Okay, you were showing, okay, that now, when he said you're showing the servitude years, that's what, now it makes sense, okay. All right, I couldn't figure out what she's trying to show here. And, so it'd be easier to understand. So this is the one that what's his name, Users? How you pronounce his name, Users?
Usher.
Usher?
Yeah.
Pronounced Usher, then,
Usher.
even though it's got all the messages, it's pronounced
Yeah,
just like,
Usher.
didn't have the one that's Usher. It's like a usher to church. All right, 'cause I read a lot about him as being a well-known, like that guy.
Oh, these men dedicated their life to chronology.
They studied it, you know.
Oh, listen, years. See, that's why I'm not criticizing any of their, quote, heirs.
So he just threw these years out in order to,
Because of 480
square his chronology to make the 480
480
years.
years.
And so,
Yeah,
but in doing that, you end up with 114 years of chronological era
that's right.
that won't meet up.
You
to
mentioned
Daniel
that about an
7
hour ago on something.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I just wasn't connecting the two here.
I knew you'd come into this, you see.
So, you're about into, you're talking over the whole 480 years again, okay?